Today I'm welcoming Panagiotis Barbarigos to talk about family businesses. He's an mBIT coach, NLP coach, and whiz in marketing, done family business for the last 20 plus years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
20, almost 24 years.
Okay, so we're going to talk today about mBraining, but mBraining in business and decision making, especially in family businesses. Now, family businesses, perhaps in the U.S. or England, are no longer so common, but in Latin America, they are still the norm. And, in a lot of countries throughout Europe, they're still the norm. That is still the basis of local economies and how most people are still, doing business. But that brings a whole lot of challenges. So today we're going to talk about some of those challenges and how we make wise decisions in that place. So, Panagiotis, give us your background and your description of you, and then we'll jump right into the topic.
Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on which part of the world you are watching this live. Uh, my story starts about 46 years ago when I was literally born and metaphorically born inside a family business. My father is one of the founders of a very big family business. We employ about 120 people right now. We are leading in our field and we're exporting in 5 continents at the moment. So my life was planned since day one around the family business. Everything I did
Wow.
educationally or even my life decisions were based around the business. It took me
Yeah.
around 40 years to understand that I also have a personal path to walk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My education started with industrial design because it is a manufacturing business. Then
Mm-hmm.
I moved on to manufacturing systems and artificial intelligence as my
Oh.
bachelor's. Yeah. I have master's degree in business administration from Cardiff University, and I am expert in exporting marketing. When I came back from the university, I was around 25 years old at the time. I understood one thing, that the difference that makes the difference in any business is peopling, as we say in a
Yeah.
bit. And then I started exploring NLP and BIT and all these amazing technologies.
Oh, wow. So, when you're talking with family business owners, what are some of the principal challenges you're seeing?
They think they know everything. This is the first challenge.
Oh, because they've
Document.
grown up in the business. They've
Yeah,
grown up in the business, like you say. And so, well, there's this feeling of, well, this is all I know
yeah.
in some
The more
cases.
the basic challenge is that they cannot separate the two bulls, as I say, the two pillars,
Okay.
the family and
Mm-hmm.
the business. And because both of them
Right.
are very strong pillars of societies, NLP people might
Yeah.
call them level four value systems.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very
Yeah.
rigid systems. They tend to fight for dominance over each other. For
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
those two bulls are more like two parts trying to integrate together and create something unique, which is the family business. This is why I love family businesses, because of
Yeah.
that challenge. And this, I believe, this is the value point of a family business.
Yeah. 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 Because I mean, it is. It can be a wonderful, fantastic thing where you're striving together,
Yeah.
um, and you've got your village right within the business, and that whole support network, or it can be your own personal hell. There's a saying in Spanish of small village, big hell,
Yeah.
because when it is because when that's your whole life and something's wrong in it, everything feels like it's wrong.
Yeah. I experienced that 3 years ago during the pandemic, where I first started thinking about doing something of my own because of the situation
Hmm.
at that time. So I understood that the family business was an identity for me. Very, very
Right.
difficult to change it. I did change
Yeah.
it, but it was an
Hmm.
amazing process for me. I went through, let's say, difficult phases of mourning
Yeah.
to achieve that. It was like someone has died. I died, my older self died, and then
Yes,
someone else created.
absolutely.
This was the goal.
Yeah. And the problem with anything in personal growth, or professional growth, even if you think of changing jobs, is there is that process of leaving part of you behind that no longer fits with the new life you have, and it feels like a total identity crisis. Your social network changes, your support network changes, even if, and especially if you move cities or anything like that with a change, it it threatens the very core of all of that.
But this is the magic of the process because life is about dying and being
Change.
reborn numerous times, like the phoenix archetype.
Yeah.
Or as I tell my customers, my NLP coaching customers, is that okay, let's work together, but don't expect to be happy now. If you feel happy
Right.
after the session, I'm not doing my job well. You are paying me
Right.
for not
Exactly.
working.
Because the growth process is going to be uncomfortable. Like as we transition and you morph into this new identity, there's going to be discomfort. It's not going to be, oh, that was so easy. No, not all of it.
I tell them go home, have fun, continue your life, and after a few days or maybe weeks, something will emerge from the subconscious mind. This is the sustainable change. I can offer you
Yeah.
something to make you feel happy now, and then after 2 days, you will come back to me crying, or feeling whatever
Hmm.
you are feeling now. Do you want that? I can do that, but you will have to get a pill. I'm joking, of course.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I mean, like if we look at anything in family businesses, whether it be the aspect of financing, because financing in a family business is different from financing in a public company, and most people are conversant with the financing of a public company, but when it's a family business, how you finance is totally different.
And
You're
there are
reliant on,
sorry,
okay,
the impact
you're,
of
you're
financing is
reliant
a
on
lot
your
of
ability
yeah.
to raise capital from banks with loans, or the capital that family members or friends put in, and then you've got other, you've got the stakeholders, and
Yeah.
they want to say, they might want to place on the board as well, depending on how much money they put in.
And not only that, don't forget the impact of getting financing, the personal impact, because I am talking now as one of the owners of the company.
Yes.
It has a direct impact on me and on my property as a person. It's a
But that's
very
just
special
it.
point. Yeah, it's a very special
It
point.
because often you're mortgaging your house in order to get financing to put in the business, and there is, you're all in. It's not that, making a decision of, well, let's ramp this up, let's build another warehouse, it has a personal cost.
Yeah, and if the two bulls are not in peace with together, it is an amazing volatile process.
Right.
I know that
Exactly.
from firsthand.
Exactly. And then the next problem you typically face, that's one of the big ones, is that whole thing of the generational planning, the succession planning, when you're changing from an older generation down to the newer generation. Um, and
Basically,
that brings, go
swimming
ahead.
in life. You just froze. This is this has to do with communication, and I believe that everything is about communication. Not only in family businesses, but in businesses in general and in life. Communication is everything. So this is something that has to do with balancing The
Yeah.
older generation of founders, which are entrepreneurs, the second generation, which are not necessarily entrepreneurs. Okay, and this is
Yeah.
one of the points. There is no trust, and there is a
Yes.
personal emotion from the second generation towards the first. So I am working towards reframing a situation or chunking up everything to agree in something. What
Yeah.
is something? A legacy that has to be
Mm-hmm.
protected and respected for the older generation to feel secure and not to feel
Mm-hmm.
emotionless, as we were talking earlier on,
Yes.
and the
Yeah.
second
Yeah.
generation to feel empowered about it.
Right.
So this is the most amazing part for me, from family businesses, the modeling process of successions and transition from one generation to the other. This is what I love doing.
Yeah, and it's one of the hardest parts of any family business because you have somebody coming up. They might have gone off and done a master's degree overseas. They might have worked for another business, and now they're coming back with new ideas, and that upsets the apple cart too. Um, it might be that the market is changing, and one or more of the younger generations see the need to adapt to the market, and then there's others that want the safety and security of continuing to do what we've always done.
This is
And
one of the
while you might see that in one generation, typically you see that most highlighted when there's a change of generations.
yeah. One of the hooks I use in family businesses is that, guys, calm down. You are going to continue to do the same things we have been doing. Please feel safe. And what I
Mm-hmm.
what I say to them, reframing later on, is that we will keep the how of the success and we will place new content on top of it, and it's going to be yours. But the recipe
Exactly.
will not change in its essence.
Yeah.
And this is the magic of MBIT and NLP.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit because we've talked a lot about family businesses and some of the challenges that they will face. But let's talk a little bit about how we're using this hybrid coaching consulting. Because it's easy to coach if there's just one person. Okay, and I've got one member of the family and I'm coaching that. But the reality is that for this change to really be meaningful, you almost have to come in with the hat of a consultant that's helping through and talking to multiple members and hopefully all of them. Um,
You just froze again. Are you done with
okay.
the question?
Yes,
Good.
yeah, yeah.
So
Go ahead. Yeah.
I believe that coaching, consulting, and training cannot exist separately and be effective.
Yeah.
This is what I learned through experience and as someone who received these services when I was in the family
Hmm.
business, as someone who's offering the services now. I believe that if you give them together based on what the company needs, this is how effectiveness goes through the roof. So everything is a system. I approach family businesses as systems of people and as living and breathing souls. And I use the term connect soul to soul with your audience, internal or external. So by allowing myself to stay and inside the company and walk through in the shoes of the key persons of the company, I find the sweet spot. Some people call it the bottleneck. I call it the difference that will make the most impact. But I find
Yes.
a way in, a crack. And when I start doing small interventions on that crack, the whole system changes. So
Right.
one intervention, then okay, what went well, what could go better, our beloved NLP feedback, or test operate, test exit until we get the desired result, and we observe how the system reacts.
Yes.
Family businesses are amazing systems. They are very complex. You cannot plan ahead
Yes.
strategically.
Yeah. Yeah.
By trial and error, this ancient and effective technique, something changes. Sometimes, or the only thing that the family members need to understand is that the business can change. This is something very fundamental in a limited belief. We cannot change.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the capacity. We don't have the knowledge. We don't have the experience. All these,
Mm-hmm.
I will not use the word,
Yeah.
things.
Yep.
Um, if they understand that they can change and they can exert a certain degree of control over the change, then everything changes.
Yeah.
As I say, nothing changes if nothing changes. This is one of my favorite
Exactly.
quotes. This is the first part.
And one
Sorry.
of the things that makes it easier when you're in that setting, is, well, let's just play with the idea of change for the hour of this meeting or for the 2 hours of this meeting. So when we walk out that door, perhaps we don't entertain that anymore, but just give me an open mind to change for the next hour.
Or just give me one thing you believe you cannot change.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then everything starts rolling after the
Right.
first example of change.
Exactly. And one of those changes often is deciding whether or not you're bringing in an expert from the outside to fill a role, or a family member is going to step into X role on the board or in management or whatever.
You know
And
what
who
is my
is,
favorite? My favorite point of intervention is taking the black sheep or the scapegoat of the system and try. This is what I do. This is what I do. This is the most important and effective intervention for me because it
Mhm.
affects and changes the whole family. And I believe that the family is the founding pillar, not the business.
Yes.
Number two,
Yeah.
because all
Yeah.
psychologists and therapists say to us, it is your mother and your father you are to blame. So basically, I believe that the family is the driving
Mhm.
force or the
Mhm.
driver.
Wow. And so when you focus that attention, all that energy, like you say, on the black sheep, either taking them out of the picture totally so they can no longer be blamed for anything that's going wrong, or putting them in that position of power where they have decision making authority, even though you know it's going to rock the boat.
Do you know? Do you know the symbolic meaning of the biblic? I don't know if we say the word story of the black sheep or the scapegoat. There is a story in the
Yes,
Bible.
absolutely. That's
Yeah,
the one. That's the one that you send out of the tribe and you
yeah.
exile them, and
And
that takes
he told
all
it,
the sins with them. Everything that was wrong goes with them when you've exiled them. So
but
when you take the, mhm,
there is one point. You know the story. Please share it.
yes, yeah,
The point is that because they don't want to feel guilty of killing the goat, they choose the most powerful one and they recognize the skill to survive. And this is what I'm
exactly,
counting on.
exactly, exactly. That they have those skills of survival because they're the black sheep, and the black sheep typically has those survival skills.
And then transition is a survival process. Most family
Yeah.
businesses fail in the second, and
Yes.
many more in the third generation. And because it
Yeah.
is a survival business, we need an expert on surviving.
Well, the thing is that, like you said, the first generation is a generation of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
The second and the third generation have to have a slightly different mentality and yet keep that entrepreneurship alive. And often they don't have that same finesse and drive of entrepreneurship that the first generation had.
You are describing a paradox here.
Yes, I
And
am.
the entrepreneur feels the need to live. How can someone
Yeah.
who feels the need to live will stay in the business? I have that need to live. Okay, I created my own
Yeah.
business, and I felt a strong drive on that, so I can relate to that. This is a paradox
Yeah.
that family businesses, have to solve early on in the transition process. How? There are
Exactly.
a lot of ways. It's not, I believe, the scope of this interview, but there are a lot of ways to solve it. But by
Yeah.
thinking out of the box without best practices. Family
Right.
businesses sometimes are prisoners of business best practices because they come from bigger businesses and different type of businesses. A family business is a
Yeah.
business, is a family's
Yeah.
mostly a business.
Yeah. And the thing is that you have to modify those big business best practices to the realities of a family business. And most of the time we try to, just rubber stamp this from over here into here, and it doesn't necessarily work.
I tend to abuse. I'm sorry from the talking.
Yeah, no.
I,
So when you bring in all those rules from big business into a family business, it doesn't work. You can't just bring it in without modifying it and personalizing it to the situation of the family business.
if someone is a creator of a business, they create something from scratch and basically without rules. First of all, you have to find what drives people, starting with the key person,
Hmm.
the ones who are going to associate the whole life with the family business. So this is the
Yeah.
best part. Everyone is different. Finding what
Yeah.
drives the loyalty is the key part. So as
Hmm.
I was saying
Yeah.
earlier, there is a paradox.
Yeah.
Some people who are expected from them to continue the business might not have the entrepreneurial mindset, and if they
Hmm.
do have it, they tend to leave. As I said earlier, family businesses are not regular businesses. They are a different beast.
Yeah.
They need a different approach. And I
Yeah.
believe that a skill, a core skill of entrepreneurs is to create something from scratch without following recipes or creating their own recipes.
Yes.
So, in recipes,
Yeah.
best practices, they have a place, but they have a place on the how and not on the what,
Hmm.
which is the wrong.
Yes.
And this is where NLP and mBIT comes in the process.
Yeah.
So, family businesses, for me, they need to approach their own identity as unique and do whatever works, even if everyone else says the opposite. If it works, it
Yep.
works. End of story. Yes, they can
Mhm.
be inspired by how bigger the businesses work. Okay, I am totally in for that. But by filtering everything with the filters of the
Yeah.
family business. What are the filters?
Yeah.
Vision and value are two filters. There are a lot of NLP in a bit.
Hmm.
But for me, this is the approach. Create something unique by embracing your uniqueness and your authenticity. If you cannot do that,
Yeah.
do not start a business. And I know it sounds radical from someone who makes a living out of businesses, but this is what I tell to my customers. Do not start a business if you cannot do
Yeah.
these two or three things.
Yeah. And being able to say to the client, actually, I don't think this is a good idea for you. Um, it's not that it's not a good idea; it's a great idea. But many times we get carried away with, oh, it's a good idea. But if it's not in my heart, it's not in my gut, it's not who I am. It's not a good idea. And if we go back to succession, for example, sometimes this is the problem: is that on paper, one of the family members might seem like the best person to run the business, but it's not who they are or who they see themselves as being.
Yeah.
Who
And
they see themselves as is someone leaving.
yeah, one of the things I focus a lot on family businesses is the administration part or the CEO, the elected CEO,
Mhm.
and the real leader coming from the people. And in regular
Yeah,
businesses, this does not happen because everything is,
right.
let's say, faceless or emotionless or whatever they call it. But in family
Yeah.
businesses, it is the most common case. The father wants the son to be there. The people want the daughter or someone else because he or she can connect with them. So this is an amazing work to make those two work together.
Right.
Because if they don't work together, if there is no congruence or coherence, or if they disagree,
Hmm.
forget about the
It
business.
all falls apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has a due date, as I say.
Yeah.
The business has a due date because of that.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the biggest challenges I see from the legal side, in decision making is exit strategy. Sometimes the best decision a family can make is it's time to get out.
Yeah.
And like you said, for so many people, that's tied to their identity. If we don't own this business, who am I?
Mm. Yeah.
If it's not ours anymore and we sold it, who am I now?
Yeah. This is why I believe therapy, apart from what we do as NLPers, it is the best solution for family businesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
They should decide to sit on the couch of a therapist or a coach or whatever professional they choose, because this is the way forward. Either they will find inside of them the drive to continue, the vision,
Right.
and all those nice things, and then the business will thrive, or they will find
Yeah.
something else they like to do, and they will exit, keep their shares, earn money without working, and do whatever they like. But
Exactly.
this is the biggest problem also to understand, because most of the founders tend to see it as disrespect. And in Greece, where I'm
Yes.
located, where the family is very, very strong as a concept, this
Yeah.
is far worse.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and the whole questions of generations of, this is important, that whole respecting while exiting or not, um, is fundamental to the family unit, and this is why it's so hard to separate family from business.
When people tend to
Um,
leave one in favor of the other, and mostly they tend to leave family because they feel nothing's gonna happen there in terms of, in favor of the company. Then when the company does not exist, the family does not exist either because they haven't worked on it. So that's
right,
why I tend to work with the master role, as my mentor says it. The master role
yeah,
is the role we do not choose it. It's who we are behind all the identities we have. This is a role
right,
we are given, and we have to understand it in order to run all other roles, including the business roles.
exactly, yeah. So coming back to what other stuff you're doing, because I also know that you've you come from a multitude of backgrounds. The marketing and NLP, the languaging, but also the whole engineering, and um, it is a multitude of hats. So what are you working on at the moment?
At the moment, we are preparing with my team a new family business suit. We call it the soul-centric family business suit, where we engineer family
Yeah,
businesses to work not as other businesses, but to embrace their uniqueness and authenticity and thrive. One of the things I believe about the family business is that it's the best and the most suitable canva or business setup to create customer-centric and people-centric organizations. Because, as I said, the core of our existence is the family. So when we get the
yeah,
family functioning in a healthy way, the workers, the employees can model it to their own family. So I love family businesses for that. I have
yeah,
worked a lot on myself, on therapy, and on personal development, and I have achieved some things that I want all people to have, if they want it, of course.
yes,
And this is for me, this is key to my vision. And we are preparing a family business suit for that.
right.
Working with the
Absolutely.
communication.
And I see that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I see that as being essential, because like you say, it within, I mean, and even here within the cultural aspects, um, the family is still so central to how the entire culture and the economy work. You can't, it's not separate from, yes, we have multinationals here, of course we do, but they're not the main center of the local economy.
And I will share something personal now about me. We are talking about family businesses, and they are key to my vision. And I believe, as a person, that the establishment of the family is something yikes, because I grew up in a difficult family.
Yeah,
That's why, and this is very important, because even people who say no, family is not for me, they are talking about the family in a negative way, but they are still talking about the family. That's why it's key to everyone.
exactly.
I have a
Yeah.
family.
And I mean, I've ex- I've experienced recently, I'm divorced, and but I still have a close relationship with my ex-brother-in-law, and he has a business. So I got called in a month or 2 months ago of, can you help me work through this project? And I've sat in meetings as his sister-in-law without mentioning the fact that there's a divorce and everything else in between. It doesn't matter because we're still family. You know, it is still, I'm not on the board or anything, but I'm still in the decision-making process.
In Greece, in family businesses, there is a meme. People say that when the owner of the family business comes and says, "Come on now, in this company, we're all a family," expect to be exploited. Yeah.
Exactly. That is absolutely true. Because, you know, but one of my friends is like, "You work for free?" And I'm like, "Well, he doesn't pay me by the hour for what I do." But no, I don't work for free because I always get money from the family. So no, it's one of those things of, no, but I get paid whether I show up or not. I just don't get paid for showing up.
Yeah.
You know?
Reframing this belief, reframing it in a healthy way. This is how I believe
Yeah,
a family business, an effective and helpful to the society family business, should operate. When this stops being a
absolutely.
joke, when this stops being a joke and becomes a core belief, then we will be getting somewhere
Yeah.
in the businesses.
Well, and the thing is that he doesn't call me unless I'm needed.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, that's the role I want to have. I don't want to be in the day-to-day administration.
Yeah.
Um, but it's coming in and like you say, finding that alignment of what is the role of each person. I mean, I've got one friend who's in a very large family business here. It's absolutely friggin' useless at administration, but brilliant when it comes to looking at the market and having the next amazing idea of what can be. And he'll sit down and say, there's a niche that could be exploited right here. Nobody's doing this, and looking forward, we could do this. And then he turns around and walks away. His job's done.
No. And if we go back to the best practices, a topic we're discussing, in a normal business, he will have a label of the useless person because he does not do a lot of things together. But in a family business, if you put next to him a doer and a critic, you have an amazing model.
Exactly. And the thing is that he literally lives out on the family farm,
Yeah.
and that oversees the overseers, and he only comes in for the creative meetings. That's it.
This is how I am the last 3 years with the family business. I work from home remotely the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So I wear my slippers and my pajamas. I do it right now. And I have
I,
and I
I
intervene.
I actually dress for work. I dress for work in spite of working from home, because I discovered that as I started going into pajamas more, I was becoming less productive. It was like, actually,
Yeah.
I actually personally, for me, I need to dress for work for work.
This is a correct point for me also, just to mention.
Yeah, yeah. But it is that whole thing of each person. When you're in a family business, you've got to find out what that family member's role is within the family and within the business. And for some family members, they don't have a role to play in the business. And
But
there might be ego and feelings.
if they leave or you force them to leave, the end of the family business might come.
Right.
So maybe it is better to pay them and let them stay at home in some cases. And
Yes, but
because,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
because they play a major role, but no one can see it clearly. Maybe it's the glue.
Yeah,
They are the glue that holds everything together.
yeah. And you have to recognize what that role is. So it's absolutely fascinating to me because obviously the way you bring mBraining and mBIT into the business world is so different from people in Australia or New Zealand or United States or England or even in some of the Northern European countries because the business environment is so different. Um, and so for me, it's fascinating having this conversation with you because it brings that other cultural perspective of actually mBraining works in any of these environments, but we just tailor it to what we're working with.
As I tend to say to my customers, I believe that each culture have a different collective use of the brains. If we can, you can understand
Yes,
that as a group.
absolutely.
I mean,
Yes,
Greek people tend to use a lot the gut brain, and you can hear it in the
yes.
language. You can hear it in the gestures. They are kinesthetic over 70%, as far as I know.
Yeah. Well, it's like the Italians that, they're talking with their hands, and if you tie their hands, they can't talk.
Get
Um,
out of the
but
way. With your headband.
but it's also that whole thing of, when they're heart centered more than head centered. Um, and there's more heart and gut than there is head, and that can be a really good thing as long as we're bringing it into alignment.
Yeah. The most amazing impact mBIT has on business people, it is because they tend to use mostly their head brains or the digital modalities in NLP. They
Yeah.
are amazed, first of all, about the information regarding the brain.
Yes. Yeah.
When you ask them to do balance breathing for 3 minutes, they are like that. What happened now? I can feel something on the left side of my chest where I thought it was empty before.
Yeah.
And then it starts,
Absolutely.
the idea starts rolling that something else might happen, or maybe I have another brain or two. I don't know if they have 10 or whatever, but I have one more here. Let's learn how to use it. And then moving to the linguistics, and then moving on to
Yeah.
observing and listening the signals and the symbols. And
And the patterns and yeah.
by the time we reach to the decision making with the foundational sequence, which is amazing, I love it. I use it every day. Something starts to change. You can see
Yeah.
the eyes watering, the voice softening, the color of the face changes, and then oops, a nice heart-centric decision drops, and then the company starts rolling.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it is when we can connect with other people heart to heart instead of just using, I mean, when we try to connect, it's fine if there's a meeting of the minds, but when there's not a meeting of the minds, then we become very manipulative. We become very calculating about how we're dealing with it. Whereas when you're connecting heart to heart, there's a resonance of I can stay connected while in
Yeah.
conflict. I don't have to agree with your idea, but I stay connected. I don't distance myself. I don't leave the room. I don't stop communication.
And you save tremendous amounts of energy because one of the concepts we haven't discussed so far are the automatic behaviors or the subconscious programs. So when
Yes.
everything is working as it's supposed to be, its brain, the function, everything in a coherent state, you tend to work on the basic principle of the subconscious mind, the path of least
Yes.
resistance. So you save energy and you have energy to go back to your house and hug your wife, play with your kids, go out, and then you come back the next day and do the same thing with your employees and your colleagues. So this has an
Exactly.
amazing effect on the businesses.
Absolutely. And the thing is that, we were talking before we jumped on this that, it's not being in your heart like wearing your heart on your sleeve. It's being in your heart where you're coming from that place of inner calm and peace, of settled, of connection, of
Of forgiveness,
actually,
of
yeah, and
forgiveness.
being in touch with what you value, what's
Yeah,
truly important. I mean, we talk about corporate values and family values,
yeah.
but first and foremost is each of us knowing our own values and then finding that common ground that we can work together from a values perspective of we all find this to be the underlying value in our family, in our business, and that drives us forward.
I mentioned forgiveness just before. I don't know the Greek, sorry, the English translation how it works, but in Greek, forgiveness means making space. Sin
Oh,
holds
wow.
space. So by forgiveness, we create space in our heart for the other people to coexist, and this space comes from moving ego aside by being and
Right.
working from the heart. And this is amazing in business. When I see and I hear business people talking and working from the heart, they have amazing power because they have a lot of skills,
Yeah.
left brain
Right.
side skills. When they fortify those skills with the right brain side, if that concept exists, of course,
Yes, absolutely.
then,
Whole brain.
yeah, then something magic happens. And this is the change personally I want to bring in the world by awakening people to those concepts.
Yeah, absolutely. And that happens when our body is in balance, so like you said, we start with balanced breathing, 3 minutes of balanced breathing, and it's almost a different person in front of you,
Yeah, but the more,
because in balanced breathing
yeah.
both sides of the brains are in connection.
And the most important part of change is embodying the change. You can work
Yes.
around it cognitively. You can create the inner structure. You can do it with NLP, but embodying it, it's the one step that most people either they don't know about it or they leave it because it's a difficult one. So by
Right.
getting the body inside the equation, it is a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we are way over time, as I expected. um, I knew it wasn't going to be 30 minutes. Um, so thank you so much. Where can people find you?
They can find me on social media on Facebook and Instagram mostly uh, by typing my
Uh,
name, and
okay,
they can,
Panagiotis with a G or with a Y?
with a Y on Facebook, and on you can access me via my website, which is 3w my long Greek name.com.
Okay, it's all right. I will put that. I'll put that in the comments. Yeah. Right. Um, and so thank you so much for joining me today and talking about, this. I mean, family businesses, like I said, perhaps for the US isn't such a big deal, or for, England is not such a big deal anymore. But for many places in the rest of the world, it is still how business is done. Um, so thank you so much for bringing a whole different perspective, and also about how we use mBraining in this particular aspect of doing business and leadership. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. It was an amazing experience for me to be here with you, sharing things I love.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me on this conversation with Panagiotis about family businesses. His contact details and social media are below, as are mine, and I hope you continue to enjoy my conversations on mBraining.